Malaysia's fiscal deficits are expected to narrow to 40.48 billion ringgit or 5.6% of total gross domestic product or GDP next year from 51.12 billion ringgit or 7.4% of GDP in 2009 due to a reduction in government spending. These deficits will be financed through domestic borrowings. The economy is expected to grow again with an estimated growth rate of about 2 to 3% in 2010 from a contraction of 3% this year on the backdrop of stabilizing global economic conditions and accommodative monetary policy. Against this backdrop of more favorable global economic conditions, the country's economy will also grow again driven by domestic demand, particularly from private expenditure, also supported by an expected recovery in external demand. According to the Finance Ministry in its annual economic report, recovery will be broad-based with positive contributions from all sectors in the economy, expecting to raise nominal per capita GNP by 2.5% to 24,661 ringgit next year from 24,055 ringgit in 2009. While the country's purchasing power parity or PPP is expected to increase by 2.7% to 13,177 US dollars in 2010 from 12,826 US dollars this year. Meanwhile, the private sector will once again lead economic growth due to a rebound in the sector's expenditure at 2.9% in 2010 from a contraction of 2.4% this year. While in contrast, public sector expenditure is expected to decline by 3% next year as the government is expected to reduce its role in spurring the economy gradually, allowing the private sector again to lead economic growth. The services sector is expected to expand 3.6% in 2010 with a higher share of 58.5% to GDP compared to a 2.1% growth this year with a GDP share of 57.9%. The government said in the report that it will continue to intensify its efforts to develop the services sector as the key driver of growth. The manufacturing sector is expected to register a growth rate of 1.7% next year versus a contraction of 12.1% in 2009 due to a recovery in global trade, while domestic-oriented industries will expand in line with better consumer sentiment and business confidence. The electrical and electronics industry is expected to turn around driven by higher demand for electronic equipment and parts as well as semiconductors. Meanwhile, the agriculture sector is expected to rebound by 2.5% in 2010 from a contraction of 2.3% this year after a recovery in the commodity sector led by palm oil. Rubber output is also projected to increase due to better demand and prices. The mining sector is expected to grow by 1.1% next year from a contraction of 2.9% this year due to higher production of crude oil and natural gas. Production of crude oil is projected to increase 0.8% to 668,000 barrels per day because of higher demand and several new oil fields which are expected to start production next year. Finally, the construction sector is projected to expand by 3.2% next year versus a 3.5% growth in 2009, benefiting from the global economic recovery and ongoing construction activities under the second stimulus package.